I do not know if it's possible for me to talk about a more terrifying subject than emotional intelligence, which I understand, like probably 50% of the people that started this video, you're already up out of here. Get it. A couple years ago, I would have been straight down to Cats on Stairs with you, 600%. Cats, Cucumbers, it's a great place. I'm sure it's on the sidebar over there. However, no matter what, at some point in your life, if you don't better understand your emotions, your life's gonna suck. And it's gonna suck in a way that you're gonna feel like just a piece of trash. Not only that, there's some really cool little like statistics over here I just wanna read to you. Just stick with me for a second. Those people that practice emotional intelligence, on average, make $29,000 more than their counterparts who do not. The number one indicator of success financially and relationship-wise is not your intellect, but your emotional intelligence. That's what we're going to dive into today. If you want to make more money, have a more fulfilling life, deal with those skeletons in the closet, not all at one time, you're just going to want to stay and hang out. Like always, my goal with these videos is to give you helpful information that doesn't just expand your awareness, but things that we can actually turn into habits, because I'm going to be straight with you. I'm a human being too, just trying to figure out how to human. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. I hope we haven't scared you off. If you've made it past the first 60 seconds, congratulations. You're probably already a part of the top 40%. If you're thinking, those cats and cucumber videos really sound appealing, again, like I said, I wouldn't blame you. So let's break it down. Let's talk about what emotional intelligence actually is from my understanding and perspective on it. Emotional intelligence really started to come out and get public knowledge by a researcher by the name of Daniel Goleman. Back in the 1990s, he started to recognize that there were certain traits of people that would come into his practice that had really smart abilities or intelligent abilities with managing their emotions. He went on to further research this more and more and started to recognize that there were some familiar traits that people had that were pretty copacetic, pretty in line with them having good lives, successful lives, good marriages, all of these different things. And 40 years later, 30 years later from when his research originally started, those things are just expanding to get more research on it. So emotional intelligence at its core is your ability to deal with your emotions in a healthy way. Dealing with your emotions in a not healthy way, the real issue, the down to the core issue, is that it's so easy to not deal with your emotions today. It is the reason I'm literally writing a book on this. It is so easy to live in the dissociated and distracted world that we have out and available to us. And heck, maybe you're here because you're distracting away from your feelings right now. Some feelings are easier than they are harder to process. There's so many different components of that. So if you've ever wondered what the heck to do with your emotions, you're in the right place. Now, my first experience with emotional intelligence came when my dad decided to leave this planet. My dad died in 2016 by choice. My dad committed suicide. And the grief that came with that, as I'm sure you can imagine, it destroyed me, to be completely blatant, to be completely honest. It rocked me to my core. There is not a ton of words to explain really what that had done to me in terms of understanding grief and all the emotions that had come up with it. At the time, I was 23 and the world was my oyster. I had all the plans, had all the, I was just ready for life. But at its core, I really didn't have life by the horns the way that I thought. And that's because I was living life through a purely intellectual lens. I was in a doctorate program and I was just thinking my way through feeling. And intellectualizing your emotions actually isn't a bad strategy as much as it gets demonized on the internet. So there's a couple things that I want us to really understand about our emotions. Number one, and this one's going to be pretty rough, your experiences that create emotions are your responsibility to understand and integrate. It's your responsibility to understand and integrate that. Now, whether those are given to you or you get them by choice does not matter. Chances are that they've already happened. And the reason that making these intentional changes to understanding your emotions matter is because this is how your nervous system works. It takes in information, compares it to the past in order to create predictive states for the future. Those are our states of being. We have to have a reference code for what's actually going on. Now, if you didn't know, your nervous system has a really high propensity for the negative, which is why those challenging emotions don't just go away. In fact, what we know is that the more that we ignore them, the worse that they get. We have this negativity bias that our brain has this bias for making things worse over time. We have this like sliding scale. We shift in to make these things bigger and larger, and we exaggerate them. And that's because overthinking in and of itself is our brain practicing these problems. And our brain literally does this in its pastime. So if you're wondering like why we have such a huge issue nowadays with expressing our emotions, it's because we never get that quiet, peaceful time, nor did we learn any of this crap in school to understand what the heck our emotions are actually doing. So if you want to live a less reactive life, you need to better integrate and understand your emotions. And the reason that that's so important, like we talked about before, nervous system takes in information, and if what you have in the past never gets a new data point to create a new state of being for your future, you're going to just relive these patterns over and over and over again. If you have a friend like this, I know I've had friends like this that just keep dating the same toxic person in different people. Like, why does Timmy just keep dating Jimmy or Susie or what the heck it is? They have the same personality traits. They don't talk. They're horrible communicators. They haven't understood the pattern. So the brain's taking in information, comparing it to the past, and rinse and repeat. It's just cycling the thing over and over again. So number one, what do we do with these things? The first phase to emotional intelligence is awareness. It's awareness of what the emotion is, where it is inside of your body, and where do you think it came from. Now, if you're like, oh my God, this stuff's not so fuzzy, I don't understand it at all, let me break it down for you in like talk that like actually made sense to somebody that like did not want to deal with their emotions. Really did not want to deal with your emotions. Awareness is recognizing that you have emotions. Like you're having a feeling right now, period. And while it's at the start effortful to draw your awareness to those feelings, because your brain is going to try to resist it, because feeling those feelings is a dangerous thing. That's typically what we associate with our feelings. It's like, this thing is dangerous, we should not do that. You want to start to experience that you're having an awareness of this. And building that awareness for a lot of people is the first building block to not feeling anymore. And that's because with that feeling, they don't ever follow through with the second part of this, which is acknowledging the feeling and also considering that I am not in the environment that might have originally triggered it. People oftentimes start to feel their feelings and they're like, I'm getting worse. My anxiety is worse. I'm more reactive. Well, yeah. You were just as reactive as you were before. You're just aware of it now. But this is where most people fall victim to their own nervous system. Your nervous system and fear, all they want is to maintain the status quo. In case you didn't know that, your nervous system just always wants to go back to the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is living a reactive life. Your brain will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven every single time. So even though that you and I can have an intellectual conversation right now and say that feeling your feelings is really beneficial, and I got a stack of research over here, hundreds of books and thousands of studies, all pointing to the fact that if we can learn to regulate our emotions, it makes you happier. It makes you healthier. You make more money. You're more successful. Your marriage will likely survive because your ability to communicate how you're actually feeling instead of building assumptions is going to exist. All those things exist. Your brain goes, hey, don't do that shit. That's dumb. You're gonna die if you feel your feeling. You're not gonna make it. It's literally what your nervous system is doing. It's trying to lie, cheat, and steal to get you back to it. And there's a couple reasons that our nervous system is doing that. Number one, building awareness in and of itself as our first step is not super dangerous, besides the fact it requires effort. And when we're stressed out, when we're reactive, the brain is looking to delegate out its resources and go, well, that thing is effortful, And I have this old brain pathway, and we've spent a lot of time on this thing. And in case you didn't know, if we have one neuron over here and this neuron over here, the space in between them, it gets wired, it gets myelinated. And that myelination makes the pathway faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until eventually those types of processes, those thinking networks, those nodals all become subconscious. Because I don't need you to think about it because I just know the pattern. It's expected. It's what's going to happen. So if you go from A to B and A to B and A to B and you A to B, have a feeling, dissociate, have a feeling, dissociate. And then suddenly you go, have a feeling, build awareness. Your brain goes, whoa, hold up, wait a second. Why, what you doing down here with this awareness? This is new. You want me to change, you want to change paths like that? No, something's wrong with you. And like most of us have experienced, that's probably what that inner voice is. It's it's really cool. That's a cool trick you're doing over there. But why don't we stop? Hey, have you checked your black box of doom recently? Have you fired that thing up? What is that? Is there a cat eye? What is that? Is there a booger on you? Do I need to pop some zit? It doesn't matter. Your brain will try ever. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? What's that smell? Is the house on fire? Did I leave the oven on? It will pick anything to distract you away from that. So building awareness is really important. And yes, it's going to make you more uncomfortable until that pathway establishes safety, certainty, and predictability that it's okay to have awareness and to go to part 2, which is to experience the awareness. This is where we start to move into actually feeling our feelings. Now, if you're a caveman in your emotional intelligence like I once was, I was like, okay, I am man, and therefore I am happy, hungry, and another one that starts with H, which I'm sure will get my video censored. You guys can use your brain. That's all I got. Happy, hungry, and that's it. That's all the man. That's all the man, right? It's not it. There's a whole spectrum. There's a whole wheel out there. My invitation to you, the way that I went about it, you're already on YouTube, you're watching long form content. Don't jump off this video just yet. I just want you to take a note somewhere to look up body scan tutorial, body scan walkthrough, body scan video, 10 minutes. That's it. And what it's going to do, and I do these nowadays, which is crazy to think that I am me as a degenerate scientist in facilitating mindfulness practices in this way. I will ASMR, take a deep breath in through the nose, let it out through the mouth. What it does is it starts to build a bodily awareness. Dr. Joe Dispenza, some of you love him, some of you hate him. I think that he's a spiritual gangster. I think he's a really fantastic human being as well. I got a story about him. When I first met him, it was a total accident. I had to point him to the bathroom. Greatest moment of my entire life. But he says that thoughts are the language of the mind. Feelings are the language of the body. And so many of us are so disconnected from our bodies mentally and emotionally that we never really associate that, maybe that tension in my shoulders is an emotion that's locked into there, right? Because this is where the experience is actually happening. So what these body scans really start to do is they start to allow you to take your awareness and drift it through different areas of your body. And the more that I started to do this, because I was skeptical when I started to do this. When I first started to do this, some really interesting things started to occur for me. One of those things that really started to occur was that I started to recognize that not only could I have that experience and I could recognize tension, and some of these really good videos that are out there, they're like, how are you breathing? Are you breathing through your shoulders, which is like a defensive breathing posture, right? That's what happens when we're trying to expel a lot of CO2 instead of bring in oxygen, or you're taking deep belly breaths. And a lot of these things just started to build awareness that where I had tension, which a lot of times was in my shoulder, and I still do, lock up my rib cage and brace my abs super hard, right? Which is great for the beach, but really bad for your low back. It's just to get that weird low back pain, and then you're just doing all kind of funky chicken things when you wake up in the morning. Instead of all those things, I started to recognize that as I drifted my awareness to where there was tension, and I learned to release it, the emotion underneath the tension allowed itself to come through. And I didn't like break down and start crying. I didn't start to like just go, oh my gosh. What started to happen for me is that I started to recognize like where these things had come from. Like I've been holding on to some of these tension patterns in my body for such a long time, and building awareness to it and then allowing myself to breathe through it, to try to like not brace or lock my jaw or shove my tongue to the roof of my mouth or let go or unclench my fist or roll out my ankles. All of those things were somatic exercises training my body to relax, to actually relax, to take a deep breath. And doing that was one of the number one ways that I built safety inside of my body. Because if you are feeling your feelings, but you're feeling them in the same state that they were originally created in, this is one of the challenges that I don't have it with therapists. I just have it with people that might not understand the nervous system super well, is that if you're re-experiencing those emotions in the same neurological state, it's only going to wire those pathways back, because your brain can't distinguish between imagination and reality oftentimes, especially doing some of these exercises. What this somatic exercise really does is not only is it building the awareness, and then you can start to ask other questions, we'll dive into that in a minute, but it is giving your body an index of safety to say, oh, we have this awareness, and it's building new association skills. And those association skills are, oh, I have tension. And oh yeah, I usually do this when I get home or at the end of the day or whatever that crazy dude on the internet keeps telling me. I can actually like relax my core right now into some of those things. And that in and of itself is the key, the sauce to better understanding emotional regulation. It is how you turn a reaction into a response. Because if you want a different response to your reactions, you have to practice intentionally responding. That is how, because reactions for me nowadays, they're not bad, they're not toxic, they're not manipulative. They are programs that I have instilled inside of my nervous system. If I have a confrontational conversation with somebody, I would previously, not too long ago, just get on the wicked defensive, right? And I felt like I was being attacked and they're coming after my character and like, blah, 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 all the other things, right? From past traumas that have occurred in my life, to the point now where I can recognize when I'm having some of these conversations, and they don't come up a lot, because when you start to do this work, a really cool effect is like people that are not emotionally intelligent just can't deal with you the same way they could before, because you're taking responsibility for those emotions and you treat yourself differently. It gives them permission to treat themselves differently. And then they're like, I don't want to treat myself differently because it's hard work, it's effort. The brain wants to maintain the status quo. But the response and the changes that I started to instill and develop in my life really started to become something beautiful. And they really started to go, oh yeah, instead of attack, defend, it was responsive. It was better connecting to what was actually going on in my life. It gave me the capacity during conversations that became heated to say, wait a second, we got totally off track. We're not getting anywhere with this. How about we take a 20-minute walk? How about we take 20 minutes worth of space and let's just get ourselves back on track. I'm going to go for a walk. You're welcome to join me. The only rule is on that walk, we cannot talk about the thing that we're originally talking about, right? Like that's healthy conversation. That's where everybody wants to be. And building these somatic practices gives you more permission to associate differently with those emotions. So build the awareness, practice some of that psychological safety that is going on, and start to understand it. Understanding and integrating are different. Starting to understand, well, where do I think this emotion originally came from? What do I think it wants? What do I think it needs? What do I think it's trying to tell me? Am I a victim of it? Is this thing victimizing me? Or if I am a victim of it, how can I move and shift and change to a different perspective that might empower me instead of victimize me? Now, I need to explain something to you that I wish would have been explained to me. The last 30 seconds of me talking potentially starts to get a little bit like Hallmarky and a little bit like, oh my gosh, okay, that's super cute, but could you not talk like that? There's something called Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager has to do with God, and essentially says that you have a better life. Your life will be better if you believe in God, because if you believe in God and then God exists, at the end of it, you've believed in God the whole time, and congratulations, you're going to be rewarded. Not believing in God, even if he doesn't exist at the end of it, you really don't get much benefit. So you get a higher quality of life if you choose to believe in God than you don't. And that whole theological debate doesn't have to do with God. It has to do with faith. Feel free to go look that up. But in terms of feeling your feelings and whether you're victimized by the experiences chosen or given to you, is in the same ballpark for me. You have to take responsibility for the things that have happened to you, whether it's been your choice or they've been given, forced, whatever you need to say, onto you. If you are a victim to them, remaining a victim to them is only going to leave you in a challenging predicament that thing is going to leave a reactive scar on your brain. One that most likely you may or may not heal over time. Those are things, thoughts, and considerations that I want you to keep in mind as you go through and about this. Now, here's the homework that you can have. Feeling your feelings, like anything else up and outside of this, is a skill. Skills can be turned into habits. Where most people fail with this is, number one, their self-awareness begins to completely override their capacity to feel differently in their own life. And when they build that index up and the self-awareness becomes so uncomfortable, they just stop doing it because the effort never gets rewarded. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. And this is where I tell people, stop going great white shark fishing with a Mickey Mouse rod from the dollar store. It's going to break. You don't have the skill set to deal with those things. So don't go into emotional intelligence thinking like, oh, I'm going to process like my dad's suicide, or I'm going to process this, or I'm going to process. You're welcome to go try that. I highly recommend connecting with a really great therapist. Hit some EMDR. If you've got PTSD in your back pocket from something, or CPTSD or any of those other things, please hit up some trained specialists and things like that. Some of these tools are just things that have helped me out in my own life, but I started off with 5 minutes a day. I really wanted to better understand, was there anything that happened during my day that was reactive? And I will think back and reflect on the day and do some of those things. They're practices that I do with my daughter every night too, who is 7 at this time. All of these practices help us better index and understand the experiences that we're having. And it not only puts us back in the driver's seat of certainty and predictability, but it removes the victimhood of our own feelings from our lives. And in doing that, allows you to live a more fulfilling life. You're not only going to be able to index and have more awareness of like, oh, I'm starting to feel like this anxiousness coming on. Wonder where that's coming from. Instead of having to intentionally put those things into your life, your brain's going to just try to override it with efficiency and just build it into your everyday cognitive thinking. So instead of overthinking, your brain goes into contemplation in analytics and data. And when you start to do that, it's really, really cool. Now, with all my clients and in my coaching groups, I pair it up with things like the Garmin or the Oura Ring, because you can look at how well your nervous system is regulated through HRV scores and other things like that. So if you're ever interested in learning some more about using emotional intelligence and biometrics and things like that, please check out some of the links down below. But I'm super curious, in the comment section, please put what was your big takeaway from this video, minus cats and cucumbers being what's on my side scroll bar on YouTube. As always, thank you so much for being here. I'm having a blast making these YouTube videos. If you guys have more comments, suggestions, or anything else, please put them down below, and I'll see you on the next one.